welcome to my podcast, the show where we explore ideas that shape how we see the world and each other. Today we're diving into a topic that's both fascinating and complex: Orientalism. You might have heard the word before, but what does it really mean? And why does it still matter in 2025? Have you ever noticed how movies, books, or even news stories often portray the Middle East or Asia as mysterious lands full of exotic people, ancient traditions, or endless conflict? These portrayals don't happen by accident. They come from a long history of how the West has viewed and represented the East, a history that Edward Said famously called Orientalism. In this episode, I want to take you on a journey through the origins of Orientalism, explain Said's powerful critique, and explore why this way of seeing the world still influences us today. So, let's get started! Orientalism began as a scholarly pursuit in the 19th and 18th centuries. During the height of European colonialism, Western scholars, mostly from Britain, France, and other colonial powers, were fascinated by the language, cultures, and histories of what they called the Orient. This term was vague but generally referred to the Middle East, North Africa, South Asia, and East Asia. These early Orientalists were pioneers in many ways. They translated ancient texts, studied languages like Arabic, Persian, and Sanskrit, and documented customs and traditions that were unfamiliar to Europeans. Their work laid the foundation for modern Middle Eastern and Asian studies. But here's the catch. Their scholarship was deeply entangled with colonial power. The West was expanding its empires, and knowledge about the East became a tool to control and manage these territories. The East was often portrayed as timeless, exotic, and fundamentally different from the rational, progressive West. This wasn't just innocent curiosity. It was a way to justify colonial domination by implying that Eastern societies were backward and in need of Western guidance. For example, many travelogues and academic works from that era describe Eastern people as mysterious, sensual, or even dangerous. Women were often depicted as oppressed or veiled enigmas, while men were portrayed as despotic or fanatical. These stereotypes created a powerful us versus them narrative that shaped the Western attitudes for generations. Edward Said groundbreaking critique fast-forward to 1978, when Edward Said, a Palestinian-American scholar, published his groundbreaking book Orientalism. Said didn't just critique individual scholars, he argued that Orientalism was a whole system of knowledge and power. It was a way the West constructed the East as the other, defining itself as superior by contrast. Science show how Western literature, art, and academic work often depicted Eastern society as irrational, exotic, and static, while the West was seen as rational, modern, and dynamic. This binary division served to justify colonialism and imperialism, making domination seem natural and even benevolent. One of Said's key points was that Orientalism wasn't just about inaccurate facts, it was about power. The West's representation of the East shaped policies, justified wars, and influenced global politics. For instance, the stereotype of the violent fanatic has been used to justify military intervention in the Middle East, even in the recent decades. Think about the popular culture. Hollywood films often portray Middle Eastern characters as terrorists or even villains, rarely as complex human beings. News media sometimes emphasize conflict and chaos over everyday life and culture. These are modern echoes of Orientalist stereotypes. What's important to understand is that science didn't dismiss all Western scholarship. Many Orientalists were sincere and contributed valuable knowledge, but their work was shaped by assumption and power structure of their time. Science critics invite us to be aware of these biases and to question who gets to tell the story. So, why does Orientalism still matter today? So formal colonialism ended decades ago. The ways of thinking that Orientalism created haven't disappeared. They continue to influence how the West perceives the East in politics, media, education, and everyday life. For example, Orientalist stereotypes surge again, with widespread portrayals of Muslims as suspicious and or dangerous. This simplified narrative fuels Islamophobia and misunderstandings, affecting millions of lives. But there are also a growing movement to challenge Orientalism. Scholars, activists, and artists from the Middle East, Asia, and other formerly colonized regions are reclaiming their own stories. They emphasize the diversity and complexity of their culture, pushing back against stereotypes. In academia, there's been a shift towards more of speaking about the Western culture. Scholars increasingly collaborate with people from those cultures, amplifying their voice. This is a part of a broader post-colonial critique that seeks to dismantle all power imbalance in knowledge production. At the same time as global communication expands, we have more opportunities to engage directly with different cultures, breaking down the simplistic East-West divide that Orientalism created. As listeners, it's worth reflecting on how Orientalism might shape our own views. Have we unconsciously absorbed stereotypes from movies, news, or books? How often do we seek out voices from the cultures themselves? Being aware of Orientalism helps us become more critical consumer of information and more empathetic global citizens. To sum up, Orientalism is not just a dusty academic term. It's a powerful lens that has shaped how the West sees the East for centuries. It's a story about knowledge, power, and also representation. Edward Said's critique opened the door for us to question these narratives and strive for a more honest and respectful understanding of different cultures. If this episode has sparked your curiosity or challenged your assumptions, I encourage you to explore more about Orientalism and post-colonial studies. And of course, listen to the voices from the culture themselves. They have so much to teach us. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. So yeah, bye-bye!